Hello there, welcome to Young African Trep TV series. My name is Modella. I'll be here to inform, inspire, connect, and promote a large community of entrepreneurs in diverse sectors. And I have another agricultural, entrepreneurial-minded person here on today's show on Young African Trep TV series. His name is Mr. Kenneth Obiajulu. He is a serial innovation specialist focused on disrupting the agribusiness model in private sectors and the development space in Africa. I'm so excited to have you here on today's show. How do you feel to be here, Mr. Kenneth?
I feel so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay, he's also the co-founder and managing director at FarmCrowd Africa. So we're going to be having some swell time, some good moments experience with him today on the show. So stay tuned, don't touch the dial. This is Young African Trep TV series. Let's get to meet you better from what I just said.
Okay, so my name is Kenneth Obiajulu, and I'm co-founder and managing director of FarmCrowd Africa. FarmCrowd Africa happens to be one of the subsidiaries of the FarmCrowd group. From Delta State, last of 3 children, and I'm an agricultural enthusiast, and I'm focused on anything that has to do with youth development across the agricultural value chain or space.
I like that. So let's get to understand who FarmCrowding is. I don't want to say what it is because I believe it's a big thing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about FarmCrowding.
Okay, so basically, FarmCrowd is the parent company that holds businesses that plays in the agricultural space. Okay. And in the FarmCrowd group, we have FarmCrowd as a business that focuses on crop production activities. Case in point, any activity that has to do with cultivation of agricultural commodities, raising of birds, that's chicken, poultry, and livestock in general. That's what FarmCrowd does. Okay. FarmGate, on the other hand, is a subsidiary under the FarmCrowd group that focuses on connecting smallholder farmers to large-scale processors and international buyers. So if I were to give you a perfect illustration of what it would look like using some other businesses. In the oil and gas business, you have those in the upstream and those in the downstream. The upstream will be FarmCrowding, and then the downstream would be FarmCrowd Africa.
Okay, so when did this all get to you? I understand you're the co-founder, but of course you can actually brief us on when FarmCrowding. We'll talk about FarmCrowding today if you don't mind. When did it start?
So I would not be able to speak completely about FarmCrowding because we have about 6 co-founders, okay, and all focused on various functional areas.
Oh, awesome.
FarmCrowd as a group has the founder and CEO being Onyeka Akuma, and he would be in the best position to speak to what FarmCrowd is and how the inception process is started. But I can speak to the beginning of FarmCrowd Africa, okay. What we have seen as one of the major challenges and the areas that we want to see our business touch and transform. So basically we realized that smallholder farmers, 4 of the biggest challenges in agricultural value chain has always been around productivity, post-harvest losses, access to finance, and then market linkages. We have seen that our farmers can produce, but the question is, are their yields up to standard, with other farmers in other parts of the world? Do they use premium variety seedlings when they are cultivating the commodities? And that has always been a big challenge for our farmers. And even when they do produce, after harvest, they experience closer to between 30 to 60% post-harvest losses. So even when the yields are not optimal enough, they still get to lose a lot of their commodities. Case in point, in the tomato value chain, between 40 to 60% of what is produced is lost, and then they can't do all of this a lot of the time because even the financial institutions that ought to be backing the smallholder farmers, in the Nigerian case, they want about 150% cover before they would even give facilities to the smallholder farmers. So access to finance is a big issue, a critical issue for our farmers. And lastly, market linkages. Even when the farmers have produced, they have to go through multiple layers of intermediaries before they can get their commodities in the hands of major processors. And going through multiple layers of intermediaries means that you will lose value at every single point. And that in itself presented a unique opportunity to both FarmCrowd and FarmGate. To FarmCrowd, how they are able to, we are able to use a superior access to finance model to see how we can raise funds from individuals passionate about agriculture like yourself and myself. Invest in smallholder farmers in remote communities and see how they can increase their productivity and reduce post-harvest losses through teaching them good agronomic practices. And then finally, what FarmGate Africa does is to connect the smallholder farmers and what they have produced throughout that whole year of toiling in the soil to superior markets, reducing the numbers of intermediaries playing in that space such that we're able to transfer more premiums to the smallholder farmers, and even for the major processors, they're able to get some good cost savings on what they do. So that's what we're all about as a group and as a subsidiary, and the focus is on empowering smallholder farmers, and seeing how we can bring concrete values, not in the pages of newspapers and in the boardrooms. We're looking at bringing direct, concrete, physical impact in their lives.
If you could permit me to say that it's just more like creating job opportunities for them.
Of course, our farmers have, 38 million farmers, smallholder farmers in Nigeria. That's a whole lot, and a lot of them are cultivating on less than 1 hectare, but they have more than enough land that they can cultivate on. The question is, how do we move them from that subsistence level of agriculture? Subsistence meaning they cultivate just for themselves and their family to feed, and then what is left they sell. But from a commercial point, it ought to be you cultivate for what you can sell, then what is left you eat. So we're trying to change that orientation to see how we're able to get farmers to that level. As FarmCrowd group through access to finance, as FarmGate, how we can plug the farmers directly to major processors and international buyers, because we have also seen that in Nigeria our commodities are in high demand, even in the international community. 95% of our ginger is being exported to various parts of the world. The question now becomes, the major buyers in Europe and in Asia, do they have access to directly to our smallholder farmers, or do they have to go through multiple layers of intermediaries to be able to get these commodities? And those are the linkages that at FarmGate Africa we're trying to really understand and also solve.
Interesting. So let's see, no names mentioned. If you agree, there's so many say agribusinesses who are into same thing like you're into, no names mentioned, like I said earlier. But now, if I could ask, what makes FarmCrowd, what makes them unique from others?
So I think what makes the business as a group and also as a subsidiary unique is, one, the people. You can see amazing people dedicated to what they do. We have a diverse pool of individuals that have their areas of competence in various things, technology, marketing, core agricultural operations, and most importantly, we're passionate about what we do. Passion is something that differentiates us from every other business out there. We're passionate. If you even go through some of our mission and vision statements, you will see that hunger is one of the things that drives and fuels what we do. We are hungry about creating impact. We are hungry about ensuring that smallholder farmers are able to meet up with that mandate of providing food security for Nigerians and Africa by extension. So I think that's one of the biggest difference that we can lay claim to.
I love that. Now, in the beginning, you talked about youth empowerment, how FarmGate, one of the key purpose is youth empowerment, youth infrastructure and all that. So let's talk about youth. Let's say they are not into farming and they're not into the agribusiness. Do you say you only impact the youths who are into the agribusiness alone? Or probably, I just need to know. What kind of
so basically what we have seen is that my generation and our generation sees agriculture as something that is too demanding, too difficult, too mundane, too backwards. There's no swag in it, right? It's difficult for you to say you're a farmer, and what we have tried to do, as a matter of emphasis and reports, YPAD 2012 said that the average age of a farmer in Nigeria as at 2012, 2013 was between 55 and 60 years old.
Awesome.
Okay? And that by 2030, the average age will be between 65 and 80 years old.
Okay.
It means that in the next few years, we might be having a food crisis at our hand because individuals like myself and yourself feel that agriculture is not cool enough, and there is nothing there. So what we have tried to do as a business is to be able to encourage more youth entrepreneurs to see agriculture as a business. And like I keep telling everybody, one of the things that drives our generation is we need to show them where the money is. We need to make them understand that it's not as mundane as people say it is. There are 100% mechanization tools that we can employ in agriculture that can bring about greater yields. And so our job is to show our generation that if we're doing it, you can also do it. And I mean, it has a ripple effect once you see someone that is within the same age group engage in agriculture, and then we try to reach out, we try to provide information as to what is going on in the space, investment opportunities, how do you create even more value right from the small farming in your house, to commercial scale, and so our own way of ensuring that we get as much youths involved in agriculture and also encourage women participation in the system as well.
Again, interesting. Okay, now going through your profile, I read that you're a first-class graduate from this prestigious university, the Redeemers University, where you studied economics and business administration. Now, I now wonder, doesn't he have any challenges coming into the agribusiness? But we would actually take the challenges after the short break. Don't touch the dial. Okay, yes. So now let's talk about you being, you've handled so many projects like you just said. Now, let me ask, tell us about a time that you handled a project that didn't go well, the way you expected it to go, and you had to pivot. Let's talk about it.
And that's the truth about almost everything in life. Nothing goes as planned, because I would have vowed that I was going to be a medical doctor.
Of course, you look like one with glasses.
And at some point, I had to pivot into, I felt geology was cool because everyone was working in the oil and gas firm. I needed a piece of that pie as well, and so same thing applies to almost all projects. Today, tomorrow, yesterday, we've seen several projects that we started that didn't work out fine. I talked about the moving tomatoes from Kano to Lagos.
Okay.
Would you imagine that the second time we tried it, we made losses of about 60% of what was invested? And we tried it the third time and we made more losses. But we tried the fourth time optimizing the entire model, and then we kicked up. So it's important. One thing that is very, very important and key is the fact that we need to keep trying. You don't know where that magical point would be. Because if you don't keep moving, then it's all a waste. So all projects, every single project that I have personally taken up, and we've always had points where things would change, and then it's every innovative model has that point where you need to create an alternative to every single point to ensure that the model is completely optimized and you're doing the best that you can to ensure that. The goal is what is most important, and if you have to tweak that model several times to ensure that you meet the goal, then that's what we do.
This is the Young African Trep TV series, and I'm still having a soul time with Mr. Kede Obiajulu. If you could change anything about the agribusiness sector, or should I say industry, and the tech industry, because reading through your profile, I noticed that you, when I say you, I mean FarmCrowd and of course FarmGates, if it's one and all that, you purchase a large community of agri products through the use of tech and all that. So I really need to ask if you could change anything about the business sector of agribusiness. if you understand what I mean, and of course the tech industry, what would that be?
If there is something that is most important that everyone needs to hear, is I think it's one of the problems that Nigeria also faces, right? And that problem in itself is individually brilliant, collectively almost a failure, right? Because we compete when we should collaborate, and then we collaborate when we should be competing. Right? If there's one thing I would advise and I could change about the agribusiness spaces is the fact that we need to collaborate more. You know, every single person is operating in isolation. You know, everyone working in silos. At the end of the day, you know, if we're able to come together, we have seen disruptive innovations around land clearing, for example. But land clearing happens to be one of the biggest problems in the agricultural space, right? But there is a business that has been able to solve that issue by amortizing the cost of land clearing across a period of time, right? We have seen distribution of agri-inputs as a major challenge, but we've also seen projects that have been developed in Nigeria and Africa that solves distribution of agri-inputs, right? We have seen disruptive access to finance models like FarmCrowd is, okay? But we have also seen that there are still challenges in other places. So what I think, if I could change anything about the agribusiness industry and business generally, it would be we need to start collaborating more. We need to find out what people have done. Everyone is trying to hold on to their models and say, oh, I developed this, you know, oh, I'm going to die with this. At the end of the day, I think if we're able to come together, you know, it makes it easier for us to solve the problem. Nigeria is going to hit about 400 million people by 2050. We need to get our acts together.
I like that. So now let's talk about low points. Now, a lot of people don't appreciate their low points at all. Now, it should really be reassuring that Kenneth went through some low points and, you know, you're still on your feet today and all that, you know, stronger and all that. So can you tell us about some hard times you went through and how did you learn from them?
I mean, I think, as a matter of fact, I think that difficult times are a test of your consistency. And it's a true test of patience, you know, and it shows how much commitment you put into things. I remembered back in 2020, that was 2015, when I left, 2014, 2015, when I left the industrial power business. When I left the business, I was able to hold on to 3 accounts that I wanted to work with. And at the back of my mind, I felt this is good enough, you know, while I figure out what I wanted to do. In 2 months, all 3 accounts said they weren't going to work with me anymore. I used to stay in Dolphin back in the day. I had to, you know, right size, move from Dolphin to Palm Grove.
Wow.
You know, and I had to get myself together, you know. But you see, in all of those things, and allow me to be very spiritual here. In all of those things, what kept me moving was the fact that before I left, I heard it clearly. It wasn't once, it wasn't twice. It was very clear. I will go before you, and I will level exalted places. I will break into pieces gates of bronze, and I will cut through bars of iron for your sake. I will give you treasures in hidden places, and you will know that I am God, and I have called you, Obi, by your name. You know. So for me, I held on to it, and that's why I said that's me being as spiritual as I can.
I like that.
I'm not trying to advocate for that being the solution to everything, because with religion comes a whole bunch of nonsense as well. But I'm saying what keeps me true, what keeps me focused on what I did during that period was the fact that it was clear. And I remember the interview that was going to get me into the World Bank. They asked me a simple question. They said, what was the hardest part in your life? You know, doing all those things that you have done. And I said, I think it's my tomato project when I had to move with the truck. And they said, that's the story we want to hear. You know, and at the end of the day, I realized that the thing that got me that placement was that very difficult part. What if I couldn't tell that story? You know, so one thing that I keep telling people is, you know, tough times don't last. You know, tough people do.
Okay, now let's talk about a little bit of personally. Did you ever thought about quitting at some point? You know, probably going back to being an economist or a business administrator. Did you ever thought about quitting?
Every day this morning, I think I still put up a post and saying I don't feel like going to work today. But I remembered the goal as well is to retire at 40.
Okay.
So every day counts. If I take today off, it means I need to put in 40 plus 1 day.
Exactly.
You know, so every single time with all of the pressure, with all of everything, it's Nigeria is a place where if you succeed, you have really done a lot, because you have fought through diverse challenges, economic challenges, policies, human beings, you fought through a lot. And if there is anything that encourages me, and I would also put out there, is there's this part of the book Julius Caesar that William Shakespeare wrote when Cassius was talking to Brutus, and he told him, there is a tide in the affairs of all men. When taken, leads to riches. Omitted, and the voyage of their lives is bound in miseries. And he went ahead to say, upon such a full sea, we are now afloat, and we must take each current as it serves. Nigeria is at a point where we are on a full sea. An attempt to rest, sleep, everyone is going to take out.
I have a Shakespearean handbag in the house,
and those are the things that when I think of quitting, I remember that Nigeria is at that turning point where an attempt to sleep off, and then everything is going to happen right before your very eyes. So it happens all the time. I mean, for anyone that is listening, it happens. I almost quit this morning.
I get you.
Yes.
Now, to people out there, I want to bring it to the people, should I say, the first class graduate out there who was still stuck, or to the third class out there who was still stuck, okay, to the general people, the entrepreneurs out there,
yes,
now who look up to you,
yeah,
who see you as a mentor. A lot of people forget it, they are seeing you as a mentor right now. Now, if you ever want to talk to them about an advice, or that comes to you, to people who have problems, having a clear decision, have decisive problems and all that, career-wise, all-wise, what kind of advice would you talk to them about?
Take it easy on yourself. I remembered I wanted to actually study accounting.
Wow.
I felt that was it. But I had failed accounts in senior secondary school, so much so that when I wanted to get into Redeemers University, by the way, my best friend, Karo Atumu, bought my form to get into Redeemers University. And when he was filling the form, he said, I know this guy wants to study accounting, but he talks too much. If he talks too much, he should be in marketing. Where is marketing? And it was under the Department of Economics and Business. And then he filled it for me. And then I got into school and realized that this is what I'm meant to do. So one thing that I tell everybody is this: if you can't figure it out for yourself, trust me, there are people in your lives that are meant to show you what you are supposed to do if you don't know it yourself.
That's if you follow the right people.
If you follow, of course. I mean, that's the caveat right there.
Okay.
You need to be around the right people. I mean, if you have 5 billionaires and there's a slot for the 6th person, you will be the 6th person, because your association will determine how you move.
I like that. Now, I really want to take you back a little. If you thought about any time when you wanted to cry, any time when you cry, was it in business, and all that, what was that time? And it's permitted, you could cry now.
I think I'm a very emotional person. So, okay. Business-wise, I mean, every time you lose money, you're always mad at yourself.
I get you.
I think, can I tell you a story?
Please go ahead.
When I was writing my final year project, I remembered I had bagged all the A's and everything to almost come out with the first class, right? And the only thing holding me back was my final year project. And I had 8 hypotheses. And most of the hypotheses was linked to what's the relationship between relational bonds and relationship quality. Relational bonds had, I'm going to go very, very
it's fine. Go on.
geeky here. Relational bonds have 3 elements: social, financial, and structural bonds. Okay. Relationship quality evolves around 3 things: trust, satisfaction, and commitment. Okay. And what I wanted to do was to show that there is a relationship between both of them. literature has shown that there is always a positive relationship, right? But there I was, running my analysis, and it was coming out negative. Every single time I run the analysis, it comes out negative. It was so bad that I almost changed the topic 1 week to the submission, and I cried, I wept, I said, this is a mockery of what we have achieved. And I would never forget, I think that was the first time I also felt that thing. You know, I wept, but in that space of weeping, I saw it clearly. There is an element that if you test in isolation would always give you negative correlation. What is that element? And then I broke down everything. Guess what? For every single time there is a promotion and they say buy one, get two free, or buy one, get one free, people switch from brands to brand. After the promotion, what happens? You go back to what you're used to, yes? Mm-hmm. That in itself is called a financial bond. It does not guarantee or build long-lasting relationships. And guess what? Every single time I was taking one element in my research, I was picking only the elements from financial. That's why it was negative.
You figured it out. Wow.
When I went to the defense of my project, the only thing they asked me was, there is one element in relational bonds that will always give you negative correlation. What is that element?
Wow.
I wept, I cried, but I knew why I was stuck. You know, so sometimes I think it's super important. Crying is not the issue. Figure it out. You know, so that's about that.
That was touching. That was really touching. Deep felt now. Yeah. Okay, now let's finally into today's show. Let's get people to know you better. Mm-hmm. When I said better, is sell yourself, your Instagram handle. Are you accessible? There's some people who want to talk to you more about. Can I just ask you a question and all that? So, do you have anything to say to that?
Okay, yes. I mean, I'm always open to, like I said initially, I am pro anything that has to do with youth empowerment. Okay. I'm pro anything that has to do with agriculture. I'm pro anything that has to do with I feel I'm a failure because I'm not academically sound. You know, I think I am one that is best suited to tell people that making a first class doesn't guarantee that you'll be successful in life. You know, and what I have done over the years is to be able to talk to people that are within my space. I am accessible in you can reach me via email, kenneth.ob@gmail.com. You can reach me on Instagram at kenneth.ob@julu. That's my handle. I don't think I operate Twitter because the nightmare there is too much every single day. Someone is firing someone.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, Instagram is where I am, and yes, I mean that's the best point that one can reach me on, and I'm very much open to discussing with people about diverse things. You know, business. Talk more about the FarmCrowd group because we're passionate about those conversations about FarmGate Africa, because that's what we do and that's where we're going to, and generally about anything. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed my time.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope you had a swell time with me on the show today. Thank you so much.
I was able to relive those moments.
I'm glad you were.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap on the Young African Trep TV series. I hope you had a lovely time, because I did. Thank you so much, viewers, for staying tuned on today's show. And I want to say a big thank you to everyone who keeps sharing, who keep liking, and who keep commenting on this show. Thank you so much. So, for more updates, you can follow us on our YouTube channel at TrepAfrica, on Instagram at TrepAfrica, and of course on Facebook at TrepAfrica. On Twitter too, at TrepAfrica. Thank you so much. I remain Modella. Until I see you next time, please stay young and imaginative.